young, man, 12, 11, 12. And I had a partner that was like 19, and we used to dance at clubs and stuff. So I was always dancing, and I've been into music my entire life. My mom, that's all she ever did was play music and introduce me to music and different artists. So I've always been influenced by music. I've always loved the people she loved, from Stevie to Mike, just everybody. I've always loved music. Um, but it wasn't until I started performing and impersonating Michael Jackson that I got the bug to really sing and, want that kind of accolades for myself, all of
Right.
the screaming and stuff with me imitating Michael. I was like, shit, I need some of that for Steve.
Right, right. I like that. Like, you like Michael. It's like, I'm Steve.
Like, man, come on. So, yeah, but I started off as a dancer, man.
So when did you learn how to play the piano at a young age? When did you get involved with playing instruments?
Well, a good friend of mine, Rick Walker, taught me how to play the piano in the 7th grade. He taught me the basics of how to play. He taught me Ribbons in the Sky. I learned how to play Ribbons in the Sky fluently. And that's what really got me going on the piano, because I could play that so good. There's only one song I could play, but I could play
But you could play
very
that.
good. And from there, I started taking those chords and putting together other structuring it different and making my own songs. And that's how I started with the piano.
All right. So, because I wanted people to hear and also the fact that you said you started playing piano in 7th grade, which most people, that's a lot down the road. But you had a love for music. You were doing the dance and you started playing piano.
Yeah.
Find one good song that you can play and sing, and the girls, oh Lord, look at little Steve.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, so you get that underway. How old were you when your friends, who would eventually become Troop, approached you about joining the group?
That was 1984. Not you can come in. You can come in. That was 1984. I just got to high school, and a friend of mine used to play basketball all the time. All of a sudden, he was telling me to watch this show, that he's going to be on this TV show lip syncing in a group. And I'm like, what? So anyway, it turns out it was Rodney and and Reggie and a couple other guys on TV on Putting on the Hits doing New Edition Cool It Now.
Putting on the Hits. I remember that show.
So I was so proud of him. I just had no idea he was into singing and dancing and stuff. So I was just shocked about that. And I was trying out for this really big talent show. We used to have huge talent shows every year in high school back when I was in school. They were really big. So I was trying out for this talent show, and the person that was putting on the talent show wanted me to go and get the group that was on Putting on the Hit. So I was looking for Rodney for a few days, and he was looking for me because, unbeknownst to me, a producer had called Putting on the Hits and wanted to know if they could really sing. And they didn't sing. So Rodney, the first thing that he thought when his mother told him they got a letter was like, I know exactly who to go get, So as I was looking for him, we ran into each other, and I was like, man, I'm looking for you. And he's like, nah, man, I'm looking for you. And so that's how it happened. I ended up singing for his mom, and that's how I got in the group. That's how it started.
Now, so you're in high school, and by this time, how old are you? 15?
I was 14.
14.
Yeah.
So you're in high school, and you guys start coming together, and now you're doing the talent shows. Now you're doing everything
as a group. Yeah.
From what they said, y'all was just crushing, running through.
Yeah, it was natural, man. Once we got together, John came. John was a part of my crew. When I was imitating Michael Jackson, I used to go around doing Thriller, and John was one of my 14 dancers. So John, he followed me right in. Oh yeah, I was Mackenzie Branch Boys Club, supported Steve 100%. We went around doing Air Force bases and stuff, and I performed Michael Jackson everywhere. But anyway, John was one of the dancers, so when he saw that I was getting in this group, he came along and got in the group. Then I later recruited Alan, and that was it, man. We started crushing talent shows around town, LA, Pasadena, and we just kept crushing. And at the same time, dealing with the producer and the ups and downs of trying to get that going. And we finally, through him, he was going through divorce. He couldn't manage us anymore. So I stole his number from Rodney's mom one day, and then I called him some weeks later and asked him, instead of just letting us go, is there somebody he could hook us up with? And so he called back a couple weeks later with a friend of his on the phone, and that the rest was history, man. That's how we end up getting our record deal.
So, and this is something I'm hitting more and more on, because now, of course, we know the power of people being independent artists and going directly to people through the internet and all this stuff. But it was one of those scenarios early off for y'all that the only money that you were really bringing in was off touring.
Period.
Right. And I was watching some about Evelyn Champagne King, and I realize now, and a lot of people may not realize this, why, now, which is funny, because if you flip the script on it, it seemed like the R&B artists and the R&B groups were getting all the shine. But it seems jazz artists always had better deals. Like if you look at Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson, not Michael Jackson, Miles Davis, and you look at some of the deals they had, it's like, man, they became very wealthy overseas. They were mindful about overseas more than we were in the States.
Yeah.
And so when was your biggest success? Like what song was it that first came on the radio and it was like, this is it? Well, no. Let me go back a little bit, because it may be in between. I heard you mention something before about people who were directly involved with you. People just thought, oh, Steve's kind of a groupie. He's a groupie. He's hanging around, he's hanging around Sweat and Gerald Levert. No, he don't really know. And Chucky Booker. So how did that, just those three, if you think Chucky Booker, Keith Sweat, and Gerald Levert, how did that affect you? And how old were you when you really connected with these guys?
Well, as soon as we signed with Atlantic, Sylvia Rome put us with Chucky Booker. So Chucky Booker became the developer of the group as far as getting songs together and stuff. But we had already had a producer, that our first manager, who had already pre-developed us before we even got to Atlantic. But once we got to Atlantic and she put us with Chucky Booker, I became so enthralled and so interested in producing, and him producing us the way he would produce us and tell us to sing this and sing that. I was just fell more in love with that than singing up front. So immediately I was just always around Chucky Booker, just all the time. Whenever there was a studio session, Steve was there. Same thing with Gerald Levert. Once we got with Gerald Levert, I don't know, man. I just got underneath those guys' wings, man. They took me under their wings, and they saw that I wanted to learn. I wanted to be more than just an artist, and that intrigued them. Chucky was really impressed by that. So was Gerald. Keith Sweat the same way. And by hanging around these guys, I learned a lot about the music business that we didn't know. A lot.
Especially from people like Gerald. I think.
Oh yeah.
I think Gerald probably, man, rest in peace, man. We were just talking about Gerald and Sean the other day. But I think, well, Chucky too. You had a master's course, because Gerald Levert, people don't realize, like at one point in time, if you took Levert even through his solo career, I can't even imagine how many gold albums, let alone the ones that went platinum, but how many consistent hits Gerald Levert.
Consistent sales, man.
And also having butter deals. Like I don't, you can't count Gerald's pockets, but he seemed like he had butter deals. Maybe because his father, being in the OJs and learning what not to do.
Well, it wasn't about how great his deals was. It was great. It was how great he managed himself as a songwriter and a publisher. He understood the publishing game.
So for the people that don't understand, because some young person is gonna watch this, or some older person that's been singing or doing tours and stuff like that, when did you realize, outside of songwriting and producing, that power in publishing? Was it Chucky and Gerald that really let you know about that?
And Keith Sweat, all three.
Right.
Keith Sweat was more aggressive with me because Keith Sweat really thought that I was an amazing songwriter young. He thought that the very first songs that I was writing was really, really good. And that's why he had me singing all the backgrounds on his records and stuff. People don't even know I'm singing all over his second album. I was always with Keith, man. And they just taught me the value of publishing. You know, when we did our publishing deal, our manager drew a circle and drew a line between it, drew a pie and said, this is publishing, this is your 50, this is our 50. So as far as publishing was a pie on a piece of paper. Gerald Levert introduced me to the equity of mechanical royalties and how it benefits your life down the line, how residual royalties change your life. And, you know, long after you have hits, people look and wonder why you're still cool and you haven't had a hit, but they don't realize you managed your split, you managed everything correctly. You know, you didn't give away all the publishing. So that was the key. We learned that early on. And that's what was ultimately the demise of us with our first management, our first production company that got us started. You know, we didn't want to break up with them, but when we went to them and we found out about publishing and that you usually get advance when somebody gets part of your publishing, you get a check. You get what I'm saying? So once we found out all this stuff and we saw that they were just getting half of the publishing and me and Alan were writing a lot of songs, you know, instead of negotiating with us, they told us to read our contracts. And so that kind of messed up our taste in our mouth. You know, we thought we were like family. And when he said, read your contract, we was like, oh shit, this is the dog eat dog we thought. It doesn't come from the stranger. It comes from the person that's right there with you, you know. But anyway, that's how I learned the publishing game, is through those three guys, Gerald Levert, Keith Sweat, and Chucky Booker. That set me on the course that guided me to my future as a songwriter.
So let's go back. Let's touch on Fruit. So what was the first song? Well, what was the first song? I want to know two things. What was the first song, Fruits, that you heard on the radio? And it was like, oh shit! Mamacita. So your first song that hit the radio happened to be a hit.
Number one record, baby.
Number one record. Right.
Yes, sir.
And that was written by Mark and
produced. Yep, written and produced by Mark and Gerald. Gerald and Murph is singing all the backgrounds. You know, Levert song. Yes, sir.
Right. So you said Murph?
Yeah, he was one of Gerald's main security guys. And he was, rest in peace, he was singing on the records as well. Yeah.
I love it. So Mamacita comes out. What year is this? 89?
88.
88.
Still in high school.
Comes out in the heart of 88, time to set it straight. Ain't no half stepping. Everything is hitting. Everybody.
Everything.
Hip hop. This when hip hop niggas was wearing suits. Everybody was, you could wear anything. Hip hop was, y'all think hip hop run the world now. The 88 and y'all come out. I know everybody and their grandmother must have thought y'all was from New York.
Everybody thought we was from New York and the East Coast.
Yeah, because and you have a hit, you know, if I listen to that song and now I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's got to be Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. I wouldn't even thought Levert. And the reason I say Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, because looking at y'all, like the moves, and who was doing your choreography
then? Me and Rodney. Rodney was the guy who set the choreography off, and I was always the guy who came and added the extra little element to it. You know, John would add here, and then we would get a third eye. We would hire a choreography to help us put it all together. So it was basically us, but we always hired a professional for a third eye.
Right. And Arsenio Hall said something which I love, because just like Don Cornelius, there's only certain people Don Cornelius let sing live on Soul Train. You can count them down. You know, Luther would sing live. You know, Aretha would sing live. Al Green would sing live. You know, you guys would dance and sing.
Yeah.
Live.
Yeah.
And
serious.
Yeah. So y'all rolling, and like I said before you see a lot of the same things that end up happening with some of the groups, the major groups, the groups together, especially younger groups. Sadly, you gotta go through the process. So you get to a point where you realize this product. Now, while you were at Troop, were there any you working with Keith on his second album? Because the second album was
I Give All My Love to You.
Woo, woo. So, which when I was making slow jam tapes, once again, I Give All My Love to You was a, especially the interlude. Good Lord have mercy. You can interlude and then I think he had an exitlude. I don't know. Good Lord. That's when you, for those who don't know, that's when you could get, if you had the tape deck that reversed itself, you just let the tape run.
Just tape to let it run.
Ah, okay. They don't understand. So you get a chance. Now, at the time, do you realize, because you're seeing the business, but do you realize who you work with? Chucky Booker, if everybody should know who Chucky Booker is. He plays with everybody, wrote for everybody. Then Chucky had a run when he came out with Don't You Know I Love You and Turned Away. And
Know I love you.
Don't worry, Chucky, we got you.
That you could miss me too.
And then the horn, the jam, you know, nastiness. Folks, I want everybody, as you're watching this, after you watch the interview, go look at some Troop, go look at some Steven Russell, go look at some Chucky on YouTube. Get it all. I'm training my daughter in all things good R&B.
Right.
And we'll talk about your radio show too, what you've been doing with that. That's serious. So were you working on production and songwriting for other people while you were with Troop? Did you get a taste of that with some other people?
Yeah, my first gold album was with the Whispers. The Whispers, I was working on some music for Troop, and the Whispers came by and they liked the song, and I end up with a gold album on the Whispers before Troop ever went gold.
Which is this the In the Mood album?
The More of the Night album.
More of the Night. That's the one that In the Mood was on, right?
No. In the Mood was on the one after that, maybe. I'm not sure. Right. Might have been before that album.
What was the song?
Big Misunderstanding. A song called Big Misunderstanding that I wrote on them. The album went gold. And that was my first taste as a writer producer outside of Troop, still having the momentum and still being good just on my own. So that gave me the courage right there that no matter what was going on with Troop, as long as I was in the studio writing, I was going to be fine.
You got a hit with the Whispers while still with Troop doing tours, and you got to hit out with the Whispers. And so what did you learn? What nuggets? Because outside of the brother that passed away, I think the Whispers have all their original members, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. The of course the twins, they don't seem like they're forever. Yeah. So what did you learn? What nuggets did you take from working with the Whispers?
Just patience. Just patience and they're such professionals. We could be laughing and talking, but when it's game face,
they just
oh man. And I saw the same thing in Gerald and working with Gerald and Eddie Levert, man. It was just like the professionalism is the main thing that I can tell you about the Whispers. That was just amazing, man. So much fun, but when it's time to get to work, when it's whoever time it is to go, man, it was professional, man. It was great to gain from that.
So it's kind of evident sometimes. Who do you like now? The youngest, well, you have a young group you're working with now. Yeah. The High Key.
High Key, yes.
High Key. But before that, prior to that, who was the youngest artist that you worked with and that had hits and that surprised you with their professionalism? I say that. Who was the youngest artist you worked with that surprised you? Because you work with several of the new artists. You work with Chris Brown.
Yeah.
Well, Chris is not really a new artist anymore, even though he's still young.
But at
But
the time, yeah. Mario, I worked with Mario when he was 14, Janae when she was 12, Chris Brown when he was, I think we got Chris when he was 13, just turning 14. I had
okay.
B2K when they were very young at 3LW. I worked with 702. And to be honest with you, all of them were professional. I didn't,
Nice.
Mario was very professional. Chris Brown was super professional at 13 and 14. B2K was amazing. All of them were amazing. I
Now,
didn't have any complaints with the young groups that I worked with. I think the only group that was just okay was B5. I think they were cool. There wasn't the same professionalism as dealing with the other guys, but they were still cool too, you know.
I'm sure somebody out there who know who B5 is, but I was like, notice he mentioned the group, and you're like, B5? What happened to B5? Exactly. So what? You guys, and you know, because Unsung can get gritty. You watching Unsung and stuff like that. But when I watched, I was like, yo, you guys avoided a lot of stuff. What? It seemed like you did, and
Well,
the ones
it
that
was done like that on purpose because at the time we were at odds. Alan wasn't really a part of the group. I just called once I landed the Unsung situation. I called him and told him, "Hey, we got Unsung, man. You should be involved." You know, so initially he didn't want to be involved, but
right.
the network was so involved with doing Truth that they went and somehow they convinced him. You know, without, you know, the only way he would do it at that time is if there were certain things they didn't talk about.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it seems so smooth and so, you know.
Whatever. But yet and still, you guys, the core of you guys, seem like you didn't get deterred by a lot of other stuff. Was it the fact? Do you think it was the fact? Well, I know for you, obviously you was too damn busy. It seemed like you adjust and stuff like that, and everybody got the ups and downs.
Yeah.
What was one of the hardest things you think you had to go through as a young artist? Not to break up the group stuff, but something that hit you and you're like, whoa, this thing is more than just success, and all this stuff.
Well, initially that feeling came from how hard we had to work. When I graduated from high school, man, we went on a 90 city tour the first time. Then the next tour was a 4-month, 6 months. So and we were a dance group, man. You know, we dance and sing. So there was never a casual time for Truth. So the first initial shock was that the average person who gets up and clocks in on a job has no idea what it takes to be this kind of a celebrity. You know, it's just nobody could imagine what it really, really takes. You guys see the videos and see it finished, but it's so much work to be great, to be something that you want to be legendary, to be great. It's so much work that you have to put into it. And that was the first thing that we noticed was, damn, this is hard. This is about to be hard, man. You know, this is about to be some serious work. And then the next initial shock was that everybody don't like you, you know. People will smile at you and treat you, you know. When we found out that there was a such thing as fake, people were fake. You know, they would smile at you, but then cut your low speakers off or make sure that you don't get all the lights. You know, it's like, whoa, this shit is wicked, man. You know,
Right.
So that kind of stuff was shocking to us, that people would kick your speakers out so that your sound cut off in the middle of your show if it's too hype.
Just people you were on tour with.
No question. There's always an accident, brother. It's always somebody from another crew.
All our mics get unplugged. I trip over every one of your 5 mics.
I trip over the damn lights. I'm sorry, man. Just plug that back up. You can get the momentum back. Right. You can get the momentum back.
What y'all mean y'all missing your dad?
That kind of stuff was shocking, man.
Well, did y'all realize? I still don't think, like, there's no song that you guys have. I call it timeless music when we talk about artists that are, you know, I was talking to you about 3 Degrees and we talking about older artists. Yeah. And I was watching a clip of Michael Jackson when they were the Jackson 5 and they were just debuting like ABC on American Bandstand. And Dick Clark says, y'all about to play a song. So who are some people that influenced you? And of course, the younger Michael and them were like the Beatles, and Michael mentioned somebody else. But all the older brothers were like the Delphonics.
Straight out.
You know what I'm saying? And it was like, you think about that because we see, and of course you got a chance to flow in with people. But did you know that while you were doing it, did you guys realize that there was really no one doing what you did? Like when I look back at Troop, no one did. Like everybody can say it, and you can watch it as unsung. Like really, they thought nobody was. No one. You see it unsung. No one was better than them. You're like, dude, you kept cussing us out. No one was better than them in the world. Like no one was. That's the kind of stuff, dance stuff, hip hop dancers would do.
Yeah.
But to be able to do that and get back to a microphone, that's why people don't realize, like young artists like Chris Brown, that can flip and do all that and get back to a mic.
Sing. He's special. Troop did it. And there hasn't been a group that did it like us since. We thought that we were setting the tone that was going to create an industry of amazing performers. And the groups went opposite of Troop. They was like, fuck that. I'm going to wear my hat in the back, put my pants down. I'm going to do this little two-step. And that's going to be it, you know. So we kind of shocked groups away from even trying to perform. We went so hardcore with it, leaning and doing the worm and backflips. And groups was like, hell nah. Oh, yeah. They changed it.
Right. When Boys to Men was on it for a little bit.
Yeah, they tried a little bit. Yeah.
With the Motown Philly stuff, but that was the popcorn stuff. They were actually doing, no offense, because I got Big Les. I did an interview with Big Les. No offense, but you know, a lot of the stuff that Boys to Men were doing with what some female background dancers were doing. You know, hitting foot and all that.
And the music was from us. You know, Dallas Austin did all that on our second album.
Right.
Motown Philly was a song on our album. The music was a song called Kicking It With My Music. Same music, same producer.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
So, come full circle. It's over. What's the first? But you were doing stuff. So when in the midst of holding the other Troop stuff, what's the artist, the biggest charting or selling artist that you worked with outside of Troop? The song that you did was like, wow, okay.
Nowhere.
Because to me, Troop is pop.
Really?
If you consider popular music.
Oh, okay.
I consider Troop went the route that Michael Jackson set up.
Okay.
You know, when Michael Jackson, you know, you guys had the R&B sound, but once you got, because I think about it. I want to put him with Chucky Bull.